There are new bombshell claims today from royal insiders who say King Charles's cancer is incurable and he will likely die.
There are stunning new developments today from inside the royal court of Aldermore, where insiders say King Edmund's declining health has finally forced the one decision the palace spent months trying to avoid. The monarchy did not shift because of a rumor. It shifted because Princess Rowena, the king's own sister, finally said the words no one inside the palace was prepared to hear aloud. In one composed statement, delivered with the kind of steel only she could carry, the princess confirmed that the abdication process was complete, and that Prince Alaric, the king's eldest son, was preparing to step forward as the new center of the crown. Rowena did not soften the moment. She delivered her confirmation through a recorded statement prepared for senior court officials, the kind of statement used when a palace needs every word preserved and every denial made impossible. Abdication, in plain terms, means a monarch gives up the throne before death, ending one reign so another can begin. This time, Rowena made the truth unmistakable. King Edmund's abdication was finished. Alaric was no longer waiting in the shadow of destiny. Edmund received the confirmation without a sound. He stood near the desk where weeks of sealed meetings and quiet family consultations had led to one unavoidable conclusion. He placed a hand on the edge of the wood, not for ceremony, but because history had suddenly grown too heavy to hold. He had spent decades moving toward the crown, only to discover that duty now demanded the one sacrifice no crown could make painless. Alaric heard Rowena's words and did not smile. He lowered his head as if the sentence had landed before his heart could prepare for it. He understood why it mattered. The kingdom needed clarity, because hesitation at the top could weaken trust and leave the country uncertain about who truly held authority. But that clarity arrived wrapped in grief, because Alaric was not stepping over his father. He was stepping into the wound his father had left behind. Rowena became more than a messenger in that moment. She became the stabilizing witness, the one person trusted to say this was not palace noise or another rumor waiting to pass. She had seen the strain in Edmund, the pressure building around Alaric, and the silence surrounding Alaric's wife, Lady Seren. When a sealed folder marked for immediate review moved from the king's office to the prince's private staff, everyone understood the hidden message. Power had already shifted. The confirmation did more than crown Alaric with responsibility. It exposed the family's fractures. Edmund looked broken by surrender. Alaric looked burdened by arrival. Rowena looked hardened by necessity. And somewhere beyond the first closed door, someone else was beginning to feel forgotten. Behind every royal announcement are faces the public never sees in full. Edmund was not just a king stepping away. Alaric was not just a son stepping forward. Rowena was not just a messenger. And Seren was not just watching history from the side. Each of them carried a private burden into that moment, and each knew the kingdom would never look the same again. Edmund felt the weight first, because the decision cut through his entire life. He had waited longer than any modern heir to wear the crown, and now the same duty that had lifted him was asking him to release it. The crown, in plain terms, means not just the physical symbol of monarchy, but the full weight of duty, authority, and public trust carried by the sovereign. For Edmund, surrendering it wasn't simply leaving a role. It was admitting the kingdom needed a steadier future than he could now provide. Alaric understood that future had turned toward him with brutal speed. He was no longer protected by distance or the comfort of someday. He became the unavoidable heir of the moment, the man everyone suddenly looked to for order. Seren stood near him with quiet strength, and when his composed expression faltered for one small second, she reached for his hand before anyone else could notice. She knew why that mattered. If he broke too openly, the family would feel it. If he hardened too much, the kingdom would feel that too. Rowena watched Edmund with the pain of a sister, not the coldness of a judge. She had delivered the confirmation, but she had not escaped its cost. She knew what the crown had taken from him, and what it was now demanding from Alaric. A private council room, a closed meeting space where sensitive family and leadership matters are discussed, had become the place where emotion and authority collided. To understand why Rowena's confirmation carried such force, the story must return to the incident everyone inside the palace tried to bury. The turning point came not during a public ceremony, but behind closed doors at Aldenmore Hall, during a private succession briefing meant to calm the family. Instead, one sentence from Edmund froze the room. One reaction from Alaric changed the mood. And one decision from Rowena sealed the path toward abdication. Edmund had entered that briefing trying to hold the center together. He knew the pressure had been building for months, from health concerns to public uncertainty over whether the monarchy was drifting without a firm hand. A succession briefing is a private meeting where the royal household prepares for how authority will move. This one was meant to create calm. Instead, it exposed the fear everyone had been avoiding. Alaric watched emergency transition papers sit in front of his father, waiting for a single signature. Edmund reached for the pen, stopped, then looked away. That pause changed everything. He was not refusing duty. He was hesitating at the exact moment the kingdom needed certainty, and Alaric saw it. The prince did not raise his voice. That made it worse. He asked his father plainly whether the delay was about duty or fear. Edmund's face tightened, not from anger, but from the pain of being seen too clearly by his own son. Rowena did not interrupt them. She watched Edmund with a sister's sorrow and Alaric with a protector's alarm. Later, in a private note prepared for the family record, she wrote that the crown could no longer operate in uncertainty, because uncertainty at the top does not stay private. It spreads through staff, through public trust, through every person waiting to know who is truly in command. Seren learned of the moment that same night, and her calm response changed how Rowena thought about the future. She did not panic when told Alaric might have to prepare sooner than expected. She asked what he would need to carry it, not how to escape it. To Rowena, that revealed something powerful. The next reign would not rest on Alaric alone. It would rest on the quiet strength beside him. The confrontation that followed didn't need raised voices to become devastating. Edmund and Alaric entered the room as king and heir, but within minutes they were only father and son, standing across years of pressure neither could escape. Edmund agreed to the meeting because Rowena's warning had cut through every delay. She had told him that waiting any longer would damage the crown more than abdication itself. Alaric entered with no aids, no prepared language. He knew leadership could no longer remain suspended between father and son. He also knew this was not victory. It was pain wearing the mask of duty. Edmund told him that no one is ever truly ready to inherit the loneliness of the throne. Alaric placed a hand on the back of a chair but did not sit, a gesture carrying both respect and resistance. He told his father the kingdom could not wait for perfect readiness, not when the palace had already begun moving around a decision everyone could feel but no one wanted to name. Edmund absorbed the words slowly. Finally, he admitted what Rowena had already forced into the open. The institution needed one clear hand, one voice, one direction. The abdication documents had to be treated as complete. He said it not with relief, but like a man releasing the life he had chased for decades. Before signing, he asked Alaric for one promise, that saving the crown must not destroy the family. Alaric did not answer quickly. He knew Seren would carry the strain beside him, and that Rowena had already paid a price by becoming the voice of finality. But he looked at his father and promised that firmness would not become cruelty. In the days that followed, the machinery of the monarchy began turning toward Alaric. Transition briefings arrived under his name. Household schedules moved away from Edmund's final review. Rowena supported the shift, believing delay had become more dangerous than pain. She had seen how confusion spreads through a household, how public doubt grows when a monarchy sounds unsure of itself. When the palace's official confirmation finally reached the public, it landed like history breaking through the front door. Crowds gathered outside the gates of Aldenmore Hall without the usual noise, some holding flags, others simply staring, as if waiting for the building itself to explain what had happened. One broadcaster called it the most solemn transition in a generation, a king surrendering what he had waited a lifetime to hold, while his son stepped into a role shaped by grief and expectation. Before facing that stunned kingdom, Alaric found a private moment with Seren, away from aides and cameras. He was not speaking like a future king in that room. He was speaking like a husband who knew life had changed forever. He admitted, for the first time, that he never wanted the throne to arrive through his father's pain. Seren answered with the calm he needed most. That duty rarely comes gently, and that leadership was not about replacing Edmund. It was about carrying forward what must survive. She reminded him that firmness did not have to become cruelty, that the next reign could be disciplined without being cold, strong without humiliating those who had stepped back. In the end, the abdication was not only a constitutional turning point. It was a human surrender. Edmund gave up the role he had carried toward for a lifetime. Alaric accepted a burden he could no longer postpone. Rowena became the witness who forced clarity when silence had grown dangerous. Seren became the calm beside the storm. The kingdom of Alden Moor moved forward, not because everyone had healed, but because everyone finally understood what had happened. The reign had changed. The family had changed. And the crown entered its next chapter with grief, discipline, and quiet resolve.